Can everybody hear me? No. So my name is Branden Miller. I work for a healthcare agency. And this is
Gardner. You also may know me as Onsi online. Onsi. Not Onsi.
And nobody knows me as Fozzie because I only put that up there once. And I don't have any accounts named Fozzie. But I needed something, right? I needed some kind of handle. Everybody has a handle, so there's my handle.
Branden's deep cover.
It might belong to somebody else, but just carry on the conversation as if it was me. So here's our agenda, and I need agenda slides, so this is all you get. Other than the hidden agenda, which is actually hopefully training. Pause for technical difficulties.
Hey, 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 hey. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2. That could be it. Can you all hear me now? Yes, yes.
So, go back, man. My name is Onsi, or Bill Gardner. Shout-outs, hacker shout-outs to Spritle, Hackett, Prime, and Glitch, my #1 homeboys, and also the High Hacks Society. Recently been at OSCP. I'm also on the co-host of the InfoSec Daily podcast on Thursday nights. Co-founder of 304 Geeks, who do HackerCon, which is coming up October 19th through the 21st in Charleston, West Virginia. I'm also the vice president of AIDE. Thanks, Branden, wearing your AIDS shirt.
I have a.
He has AIDS. And one of the things I do through 304 Geeks, is I give security awareness talks. Well, not only to organizations, professional organizations, but I also got to go to my high school and give one, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like waking up and you're giving a presentation to your high school and you're not wearing pants. But I was actually wearing pants that time, so that was always good. Sorry. And Branden and I are both contributors to the Security Awareness Training Framework. You want to use this microphone? You can pace.
Okay. I don't pace. I don't get nervous at these things. All right. So Branden Miller. Here's my little bio. I don't really talk much about myself. I am part of AID, just a member. I will be speaking at HackerCon in October. My topic is prepping. So building a pad that will last the end times. So I'm not a prepper, but my father-in-law is, and he's independently wealthy, and I like to spend money. So feel free to come on out. So why are you here? Why do we do awareness and training? I can guarantee you the effort and expense that you put up front will save your butt and the bottom line sometime down the road. And the reason is because a lot of this has to do with law, standards, policies, all that kind of crap that we all hate, right? But we have to abide by. I'm not saying build a program just to be compliant. I'm saying be compliant and then build a good program. Does that make sense? All right, so why do we do this?
Script kiddies.
So you all know these guys, right? And then, of course, there's people like Dave. Dave Kennedy built this exceptional tool, social engineering toolkit, right? And so he's our #1 guy that we're protecting our people against, right? So Dave, anybody else get that tingly feeling whenever they see this picture?
No.
It's kind of like right after my wife blows on my neck and right before she punches me in the back of the head. It's a good feeling. Nobody else gets that, really? All right.
You know, we coded these slides to remember who's who, and it never works because his name is Branden and my name's Bill. So if there's a B up there, I'm like, Branden, it's yours. So anyway, so why we do this? Well, we have to be compliant with certain regulations, laws, and standards. Of course, there's HIPAA, high-tech, FSMA, which will put anyone asleep in about 3 seconds. We also are dealing with states having their own breach notification laws, and nobody wants to be at the bad end of a breach. So the main, beyond being secure, a lot of it's about being compliant, because when it becomes to a business decision, you can say, well, the business decision is you don't want to get your butt fined off. So that's always a good motivator when talking about security awareness programs.
Something else a lot of people don't realize is some of these laws actually apply to you and you may not know it. So keep that in mind. Bill works for a lawyer.
Well, I work for a law firm.
Okay.
200
whatever.
lawyers.
They're all bad. The point is
okay?
We'll have to edit that for him so he doesn't get fired. The point is his law firm falls under some of the HIPAA regulations because of who they represent and the data that they need to support their cases. So keep in mind, just because you're not one of the covered entities under HIPAA, you could be an ancillary and you could be managing data that entity is covered under.
You could be a business associate. If you're a doctor or hospital and you have someone representing you, you're getting those medical records under the business associate agreement. Under high tech, you have to treat those as if you were a doctor or hospital.
Here's another reason why we do what we do. And initially, everybody wants to make fun of this person. Everybody wants to blame this person for our inadequacies. And I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, it's our fault that she's putting liquid paper on the screen. Okay?
Very true.
So a lot of people don't see that. As information security professionals, we are the professionals. How many people in here are accountants? Do you need to know everything there is to know about tax code? No. The accountant knows that. Your tax lawyers know that. But we have to know enough to provide them a service, right? It's just like our users, our end users, our employees. They don't have to know everything there is to know about security. They have to know how they fit in our security program, our security model. And if anybody has any questions or just wants to, heckle, feel free to do so. Otherwise, you get to hear my sexy voice the whole time.
And my sexy voice.
Right, you get to hear my sexy voice the whole time. So, Ponemon Institute. How many people have researched the Ponemon Institute? These people are pretty cool. I like them because it's their business to come up with dollar figures. And you can use those dollar figures as a business case to beef up your security program. So I know things like how much an individual health record costs, one health record. Now, if you have a breach with 20,000 health records, we can give the business an idea of how much money that's going to cost us through fines, remediation, building better programs, that kind of thing. So I highly encourage you to look up Ponemon. I guess that's how you say it. But they do studies constantly. They provide them on their website. Usually they publish them, so you don't have to have it. It's not like a for-sale service. You can always find them on the internet. And basically, they do it by industry. You can look up your industry, find out how much a breach is going to cost you. Use that as a business case.
So why do people want our stuff? And most people in this room know why bad guys want our stuff. It's all the things that we're familiar with. Money, industrial espionage, trade secrets. You can steal the formula for Coke. You could make Coke in some other country. Hacktivism and bragging rights. But our users need to know why people want to get into their networks. Generally, people say, nobody wants my stuff. So you have to illustrate to them why people want their stuff, what motivates them, and who they are.
All right, now let's talk about the actual difference between awareness and training and some of these other terms that you've heard, because there is a difference. One of the things that really gets me going is when people use the word awareness and mean training, or they mean education and they use training. There is a difference, and until you understand the difference and realize what the focus is, you can't really build a program. So the purpose of awareness is to change behavior. It really is just a single mode of transmission. It's a poster. How many people read a poster and actually believe they got trained? Right. It's just to simply make you aware, hence the term. Training, actually, the intent of training is to produce a relevant output. So if you go to a training course, whether you be just a button pusher, or I call them button monkeys, right? Well, I don't know what Nessus does, but it's got buttons and I can push buttons, or whatever it might be, okay? Education is more of a holistic approach, and the purpose is to create a specialist. Some good instances or examples of these. Once again, awareness, it's a poster. Training, it's a single course with a single focus. How do I be a better administrator for Microsoft Exchange Server? Something like that. Education is going to be more of, how do I manage like multiple applications? How do I manage multiple people like an IT staff? Right? Does that make sense? Pretty basic. But you'll be surprised how many people use these words interchangeably. Something else that I hear a lot of time is professional development. People will say, oh, it's important that I go get training because that's my professional development. Sort of. Professional development is more of like a roadmap. It's, I'm starting here where I know nothing. I become aware of a situation. I receive training. I get this holistic approach. And it's from cradle to grave, meaning you never stop learning. We tend to use, especially in the business world, professional development as an excuse to get training dollars and as an excuse to get other things. It's not just I go to a class and I become a better person. Maybe reading trade magazines, trying to figure out how what it is you do affects someone else, right? Questions about that? And then the bone of contention for everyone, this is my belief, professional development is meant to validate your skills and usually ends in a certification. Don't necessarily agree with that, but that is what the industry, the education industry, dictates or puts as a standard, is that professional development, if it ends with something that proves that you have been trained, you have been educated, and you can apply those skills. Anybody in here like NIST? Raise your hand. Don't be afraid. I love NIST. And here's the reason, is because they do all the hard work, right? And then I just have to interpret what they've done. And they're usually pretty good at giving you some good words to put on slides, or in this case, a picture. I'm a picture guy, a visual guy. That's my learning method. This is something that I've been dealing with for probably about 6 years now. And this is where I get a lot of my data. On the left side, you'll see the training continuum, awareness, training, and education. There's 3 different focuses, right? On the bottom, what you'll notice is security awareness is for all employees. That is literally your baseline. Hey, don't give so-and-so your password. That's a bad idea. There's not really a lot of thought involved, but you are shaping their decision-making, right? The next level, you have security basics and literacy. Now, this is where you want to target your people that actually operate computer systems or information systems. So they're going to get a little bit more training on top. If you have, say, a janitor, and they don't have a computer login, do you really need to give them the same training as you give, say, a data entry technician? Somebody that's going to be logging on every day? No. That's how you get complacency. If you give everybody the same training, people will get complacent. You need to give targeted training. The next one, the next level, and once again, the security basics and literacy, that's kind of bridging the gap between awareness and training. That's where you're hitting those targeted training evolutions. Say 5 minutes, no more than that. We're not talking like 3-4 days, trying to hijack an orientation program for your workforce. Your roles and responsibilities relative to IT systems, they're going to get targeted training on top of that. So this is where you're going to have to show the security implications in their particular work role. And then on top of that, you have what I like to consider our people, which is the information security professionals. So we take a more holistic approach. We're not just concerned with a single IT entity or a single way of doing business. We should be able to respond and use data to apply to all business units. Questions about this? Yes. I knew you were going to ask that. 800-something. I can get that to you. It's actually the next to the last slide here. It might be 50. 50 and 53, I always get confused. Both of them deal with training. So, but this is in both of those, I'm pretty sure. I've got that at the end. So once again, any other questions? Does that make sense? I mean, the funny thing is this is not a basic, or this is not some advanced concept. But what we fail to do is apply basics to a large organization. We always assume that, hey, let's build something big because we're big. And that's not necessarily what you need. All right. So there's 3 ways to start your program. First of all, you can get top-down approach. So this is where you go to your C-level personnel and you say, hey, look, here's what we need to do, and this is why it's a good idea. I need money. All right? That's pretty effective because it shows leadership supports your decisions. If you have the weight of the top guys or gals, then people tend to pay attention more whenever you get to the lower levels. You can start from the bottom up. You can pick certain employees, I call them early adopters, people that embrace technology, teach them the security aspects and the ramifications if they do something, and then have those people grow it from like a grassroots campaign. And then, of course, you have the blended approach. This is actually what I prefer. You focus on the new employees, on the people just coming in, and then you're trying to get leadership buy-in. So that way they can come from the top and you come from the bottom. You meet in the middle. Everybody's happy and nobody gets hacked, right? Okay. No laughs? All right. What else do you need to do? Well, right off the bat, you do what's known as a needs assessment. And this is simple. What do I need to be training people on? Go talk to the business. Read what policies or directives you have in place. They may mandate that you have certain training events, certain training evolutions. Find out what the roles and responsibilities of your employees are. Because if you're not training to those roles, then once again, you're kind of given a broad training and people start going to sleep like the guy in the back over there. It's okay, man. It's all right. Don't worry. From there, you actually start to build your program. Just develop a plan first. You don't have to go out and try to save the world all in one night. Just start with something small. I like to start with a charter. Hey, my boss is up here, by the way. Doug Fee, stand up, Doug Fee. All right. So one of the first things he insisted was that we have a charter. Because charter, it needs that buy-in from that top level, right? It needs those people, hopefully at some point they're going to sign it. And they're going to be the ones saying, hey, I support this fully. Here's my signature. Not only that, but it kind of gives you a roadmap, a plan of how you're going to run this. The next thing you know is a gap analysis. Any intelligence analysts? Yeah. You always, it's what do you know, or what do you do, what do you need to be doing, and what don't you do? That's the gap. So you have a starting point, you have where you want to be. What's in the middle, that's what you focus on for training and awareness. That keeps you from doing a lot of rework. If you do a needs assessment and you determine that everyone in your organization manages passwords really well, then you could probably just concentrate a little bit of time on password management and focus on something else.
So develop a plan. I actually have a big, long outline of what I think is a good security awareness or security education program. Training. No, I said education. We should have defined our terms before that. So, it's some of the things we talk about are, of course, scope and funding, goals and outcomes, which the things that Branden has addressed. And topics. Has anyone tried to do a security awareness training or program without management buy-in? Did it work?
It's better than usual.
You might have to have a really bad event in order to get buy-in which is something I went through. In that case, it was a nice little 0 day because somebody went someplace they shouldn't have clicked on something. So after 3 days of downtime, they decided, hey, maybe that's a good idea. We're lucky to lose any data now. But anyway, so some of the topics I think that are important are things like passwords, locking your computer, attachments, phishing, social engineering. I think that really the only defense against social engineering is education. No-tech hacking. Johnny Long wrote a great book on no-tech hacking. Data leakage, and of course hacking the news. If you want to scare them, talk about the news story about, in my case I work at a law firm, you point to the news stories where law firms have been hacked and data's been taken. So all these together is sort of like where I start out. Does anyone have any more that think that should be added? Accountability is a big one. If you have policies that aren't enforced, you probably should find another job because you're never going to be able to get anywhere with this sort of a program. Because if you tell them that, hey, this is what's out there and this is the dangers, and if you screw up, there's going to be consequences. In the case of high-tech, HIPAA high-tech, there's actually in the HIPAA high-tech policies, you're supposed to write for your organization, HR, there's an HR part of that where it says if you screw up, you're going to get remedial training. If you screw up again, you're going to get fired. But if you're not actually doing those things, that's a problem. Someone have questions? Yes, sir.
Mobile. Yeah, so mobile seems to be a new issue, and that's really surprising to me. Everybody talks about, oh, we really have to lock down these cell phones, right? How many years have people been telecommuting? My focus is always on the data, not the technology used to get the data. Cell phones is a good introductory means in which to approach the topic, because everybody wants to bring their own cell phone to work. BYOD. All right. Well, if you start telling them things like how that can have implications to your data management, or breach or loss of data, spillage, whatever you want to call it, that's a very good icebreaker into introducing the overall, hey, let's stop talking about technology and start talking about data and how we're going to secure that.
And many of the regulations are out there that may apply to your organization have mobile components to it. So pay attention to those as well. I've been in a bring your own device paradigm for 10 years, it seems like. We now are starting to get the tools. There's a lot of vendors that will sell you protection against these things, but in the end, it's people. It's people and processes, and then go talk to the vendors. Yes, sir. Right. In my case, I have 50 or 60 managers. Because in a law firm, you have partners. Well, the partners own a part of the firm. So they all have their own, I want to get to this side, I want to get to that side, or I need this business is critical. It's a lot different than working in a hierarchical where you have a CEO, et cetera, et cetera. So politics, is a big part of it too. And it is touchy when it gets to upper management. You may have to work around the fact that they can't remember a password. You may have to work around the fact they want access to just absolutely everything. So yeah, that is definitely a challenge.
For number one, scope and funding, one of the best things that I've seen to get funding is your government audit. So I always highly encourage people, whenever they get their audit results back, go down to Kinko's, get a bunch of copies made, bind it so that it makes a nice, very loud plunk whenever you throw it on your boss's desk, whenever you say, hey, we need this to meet regulatory compliance, and they go, show me, and then you pull it out and just drop it down. It usually works.
And the other thing is that, Branden works in a healthcare facility or healthcare system, and they know that they're going to get audited. In the case of other business associates under HIPAA High Tech, they're now saying you're going to get audited too. So, all these years of not having an auditor walk through your front door, is over for things like law firms and anyone else who's a business associate. But basically, that's how they're going to fund their program, I understand.
Yeah, so I did have a colleague that went to a conference this past summer, and one of the things she brought back was that HHS and OCR admitted that they have funding shortfalls, and they will make up the difference through auditing. So keep that in mind. Which is another reason why I believe in the Constitution. At some point, we have to make sure that our government works for us, right? Not against us. So developing materials. I know this is Bill's slide, but I'm going to take it because I feel like I haven't
talked too much
spoken.
already?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
boring.
Pretty
So
much.
one of the things I'll tell you about your materials, don't develop your own materials. One of the first things I did whenever I got to my new organization was reach out to another healthcare entity. And I said, kind of jokingly, hey, I noticed you have some really good policies and some good training material. Can I use that in its entirety? And the response was, interestingly enough, go for it. Just make sure you take off University of Kansas. Find a replace. Now I've got training materials. Not only that, I have the workings of a program because they let me have all that too. I have all their policies. So all I have to do is find and replace, make sure it meets our business needs, and then I'm done. So don't go out there and feel like you have to spend a lot of money. Talk to people in your industry. See what they'll give you. You'll be surprised.
There are tons of resources out there. The internet's a wonderful thing.
You can buy it, obviously. What you want to make sure you do is track the information you're putting out to your colleagues. All right? There's nothing worse than obviously making changes to something and then using old data to teach your new course. So keep that in mind. And when you make changes, or when you do feedback reports, and we'll talk about metrics a little bit later, that seems to be the hot topic or push button topic, make sure you track those changes too.
Well, for example, who here has the same security policies they did 6 months ago? That should be a living, breathing document. As things change, you bring new technologies in, it should be changing. As a part of that, as you have changing technologies or new business goals, you're going to have to make changes to your awareness and training program as well.
Down here I said think of new and innovative ways to reach people. So one of the I think the most brilliant ideas I've ever come up with, and about the only thing my boss has ever said no to, was I wanted to build an A-frame, put a poster on the front and back, and walk around the hospitals, right? Because then you're a walking awareness poster, and you can provide training whenever they ask questions. I thought that was brilliant. I did bring up like a chicken suit and stuff like that, but you know. But the point is get the end user's attention. Don't just throw up a poster and walk away. 9 times out of 10, they're going to walk right past that poster because you probably just replaced another one that they stopped looking at 2 years ago. So keep that in mind.
The other one would be, I know people have used screensavers to give a security awareness message that changes from time to time, or also you can change the user's background on your desktop. They love that, especially when you remove the picture of their cat.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any good ideas, like to grab users' attention? Yeah. Right. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I think I might actually incorporate some of that. Because as it is, the first Thursday of every month, I have an information boost. It's kind of like the Apple Genius Bar. only I call it the No Geek Speak Technology Bar. And my whole goal is to ensure that I don't use technical terms to address users' complaints or needs. First couple of months, nobody came, right? Then it started with one lady. She brought me her home laptop and said, hey, sometimes I connect to work from this home laptop. It's not running so well. What do I need to do? So I introduced her to our IT staff, all right? And we sat there and made sure that her computer was good to go. So she actually loved that. She learned something. Her computer was fast again, and she also had some added security tools.
The other thing to remember is that security awareness is not just for October. If you're doing something like a poster campaign or a written campaign, do it year-round. It's not just for October.
Yeah. If you focus on compliance, a lot of times you'll get stuck in that, let's give it one shot and then we're done for the rest of the year. Because 100% of people were trained.
And then October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, for those who may not know. That's when the feds and the state governments start pushing their awareness program.
So now we're going to get...
It's like saying cyber. Do you all drink? No. Drink.
Oh yeah, we don't drink, so every time we say cyber, you have to drink. So let's talk about reporting and metrics. This is probably the hardest thing to capture in any program. Building training materials is kind of simple. Building good training materials is a little bit harder. Metrics is what's really difficult because you have to ask yourself a lot of hard questions, right? So let's just start with the basics. First of all, you have internal and external metrics. I see external as anything outside of your training organization. So if you have a training person, then it's all their customers. If you have a training team, once again, it's all their customers. Internal is going to be that training department, that training group, that training function. So external training, you're going to be asking questions like, what was the benefit? And how did that department or those trainees judge how effective we were? So that's more going to be how you interacted with the people. It's a lot of times has nothing to do with the material you put out. It's about how friendly you were and how effective they felt you were.
I have knee issues. That's the reason I sit down. I'm really not that drunk. Thanks.
So internal, you should be asking yourself, are you doing the right thing? Are you approaching the right subject matter? Or are you delivering the right subject matter? Of course, you have subjective and objective. A lot of people want to just use subjective to get their way. That's your anecdotal evidence and your opinions. That can be effective in some circles. But you want to have a fact-based approach also. You want to show hard numbers. And it really depends on who you're talking to also and which one of these methods you're going to use. A lot of times, type A personalities, they don't want data. They want you to get with them and tell them what's going wrong and give them a story. And that can be very effective. Questions about that? I'll get to some examples a little bit later. Yes? So yeah, the question is based on the external and internal, things like auditing and use of those avenues. Yeah, we'll get to that in a couple of slides. So I'll give some solid examples of what I'm talking about in these theoretical concepts. Good question. So at the end of every course, how many people have taken a course and you have like an immediate course feedback form, right? Yeah, I always encourage those. And the reason is because you get immediate response as to what that user thought. Now, can you base those numbers, or can you look at those numbers and say that your entire training program is good? No. How many people have filled out those forms and the air conditioner was off, so you slam that instructor? I've done it. I was in the military. That was like our favorite thing to do. Especially if it was our buddy behind the podium. You know, you can find any excuse to mark their grade a little bit lower. The second approach is a 3-month feedback form. Now this is, the further away you get from that training evolution, the more robust your program needs to be. And the more costly it's going to be. Maybe not in actual dollars, but in time. The second approach is do a 3 to 6 month feedback form with that employee. Hey, 3 months ago, you went to this training course where we taught this. Did that apply to your job? And a lot of times you'll get the answer no. And that's a very humbling experience. Whenever you're creating training, you're in a mindset of, I know this, I know it's important, I need to get them to understand that. And you don't know their business. So a lot of times this 3 to 6 month feedback form will help you tailor what your training is. The first one's usually environmental. All right? And then the third one is a supervisor feedback form. So after you do the 3 to 6 month user feedback form, go to the supervisor. Ask them questions. These are going to be more anecdotal. Do you see an improvement in your employee security posture? Things of that nature. Those are kind of humbling too. Especially whenever you get, actually, yes, I think this employee is less secure.
And this is all dependent on if you can get people to get into this process. If you can't get them in a formalized process, use an informal process. If you can go sit in their office for 5 minutes or catch them in the hallway, just so you have some sort of feedback. My issue and where I work is you're a billable hour paradigm. You'll send somebody something like this, and they're like, I don't have time for this. So getting feedback is always an issue. And getting people to answer in a manner which is helpful is always going to be an issue. So one of the things you can do is try, if you're in a big organization, do you talk to everybody? You talk to all 5,000 employees, or do you try to get a good sample? Or is it based upon whatever your training schedule is, but at least have some sort of feedback? The metrics is huge, and this is something that Branden's done a lot of work on, and I have some of my own sort of old country doctor stories about, which is basically, in my case, metrics is the help desk system. Are people asking questions when they're getting email that looks strange to them? First of all, if you get an email that looks strange to you, why the hell are you asking me? Just go ahead and delete it. There are people who are lawyers who will send you email, and this wasn't in my firm before I get fired, who's like, well, man, I think I just won the Canadian lottery. I'm like, you went to how many years of college? You're practicing law, and you think you want, have you been to Canada? No. So, sorry to take you off track.
No, that's good. That's actually my second point under the metrics. So, number one, don't just train numbers unless your only goal is to hit that regulatory compliance requirement. So I know in Department of Defense, one of the things they say is you have to have 100% of your personnel trained annually on security awareness. So they show everybody a video, they stand in a format like this where there's 500 people and 200 seats, and then they check the box. What you do want to do is try to track that effectiveness in your environment. Like Bill was saying, is you do a training evolution. Did the number of help desk requests go up after that? It's not a bad thing. That's people realizing that, hey, maybe I need to change the way I do business. Let me call someone. I may not know what to do, but I know who to call.
And do it. If you've got, security awareness or security awareness training coming through the door, that's great. But you have to repeat it. People forget things. You can give them awareness training one week, and they're clicking on phishing email the next. So, we do it, I believe, once a year for all employees, who are the ones I have control of. And that's sort of, that cyclical thing, because it's just not from when you walk through the door at orientation.
So this is kind of the top 10, and this is where I'm going to address your question in the back. This is kind of the top 10, not just for information security, but across all industries of the metrics that are being tracked and ideas on metrics. The first one is track your employee retention. Not just people walking out the door voluntarily, but people that you have to fire because of security reasons. You'd be surprised at the number of companies that don't track that. They just know, so-and-so got dismissed, but no one knows why. Well, the person that fired them knows why, but they don't communicate that. Number two, if you have a sales force, increase sales. One of the best courses I've ever been to was just a sales course. And what I learned from that was that I was woefully inadequate whenever I was talking about IT and IT security. So there were a lot of questions that I'd never thought of that I should be asking. So if you're not in a sales organization, you can track the effectiveness of your communication through something like this. Increase sales, or increase communication, or increase bottom line for your business units, right? Increased operational efficiency, that's kind of what Bill was alluding to. Customer service results, that would be the same thing. Actually, I thought I put it up there. One of the gentlemen in the back brought up social engineering and testing and training on that. One of the things that I'll say is it's time intensive. It's probably one of your hardest things that you'll build a program for is social engineering. And the reason is not creating the material. The reason is you have to make it constant. You can't teach someone about social engineering and then wait till the next year to revisit that topic. And the reason is, a lot of studies I've seen, I think it was up to 80% in one study, the next day after a social engineering class, 80% of the employees fell victim to social engineering tactic. That was not even a 24-hour period. So keep that in mind. Social engineering, we all want to help. Some people want to help more than others. It's in their genes. It's what they do. We focus as a business usually on customer support. So whenever it comes to those hard questions, like, what operating system are you guys using? Oh, that's just senseless chatter. That's not going to hurt. I'll go ahead and tell them. I'm using Windows XP. All right.
Social engineering works both ways. Don't focus on the negative all the time. You have to give positive feedback if people are doing the right things. And so build rapport with your users. Not just negative rapport, you're a dumbass, you clicked on this. But if they're doing things right, try to give them a pat on the back or some sort of reward.
One of the best ideas I've heard before, and it was during the speech that what was it? A couple hours ago. Casey, you want to stand up? And you guys, stand up. Say hi. Stand up. Say hi. These guys are part of the Security Awareness Training Framework. Look it up. There's a wiki. There's a web page. It's satframework.org. We're trying to focus on several of those factors, social engineering being one of them. We're trying to come up with good concepts, not necessarily like courses, but delivery methods, how to reach people, how to make sure that information sticks.
And the framework's more of an overreaching sort of thing that addresses, what composes security awareness, what is security awareness. Ours is sort of the nuts and bolts of it and how we do it. This is more directed toward business users. The framework is for everyone, your grandmother, everyone. My grandmother. Your mom. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I know. Any questions about these? I just put these up as general concepts because if you Google these words, that's how I got them, you'll get a world of information. You'll actually get samples. There's a lot of people out there that do this as a business and actually just provide samples that you can use.
And it's very expensive,
yeah,
based on my experiences.
Yes, but there are some that just do it for fun. This is my little shameless plug. This is one of those organizations that is a community-driven organization. It's called the Open Security Architecture. What I like about these guys, once again, I'm visual in nature. Every object on here you can actually click on. It's interactive. And what they will do, this is the one for awareness and training, and they will actually give you ideas of who your target audience should be. So they have like the actor is an office worker or a remote worker or a third party like your vendors and contractors and things of that nature. And then they have delivery methods. And what's really nice is they go that next step. Each one of these like PL4, the little black boxes with the numbers and letters in them, those map back to COBIT, ISO. There's probably about 6 or 7 different standards that they map back to. So regardless of what your organization uses, if you use standards, you'll get an idea of where that fits into that framework of that standard that you're using. So if you're using COBIT, it will tell you exactly where it found it. It'll give you the language COBIT uses and explain it. It's wonderful. They have these for everything. Enterprise architecture, enterprise security architecture, penetration testing. I just happen to provide this one. So it's opensecurityarchitecture.org is their website, and it's all free. As a matter of fact, you can download all their icons and start building your own, and then upload them. They'll do a peer review and then publish it. So conclusion, obviously everybody needs a TNA program, and it's got to fit your need. So of all the dumb things I've set up here, that was not actually... All right. Everyone needs an awareness and training program that fits your needs. You have to determine what those needs are based on your business functions, and then incorporate security in a manner or a means that will help the individual, not the entire company. There's no one size fits all. You can do it on a tight budget. My budget for my first year, my boss jokingly said, it's my salary, and then he stuck to that. So, my second year I have a budget. Thanks, boss. Buying lots of food. Focus on the results. If something doesn't work, don't get bullheaded about it. Change it. Ask the customer, what do you want? You would be surprised. I've met physicians that really know more about IT than some of our help desk guys. Questions? Here are my resources and references. Yes, you have a question? Right. Yes. Right.
Or in my case, they deface the posters because they think they're smarter than me. So that's also a challenge.
Yes.
Do you want to answer that question?
You're good? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the purpose of the framework is to explain more about the learning styles, not necessarily the material. It's about the delivery method. Eventually, we'll probably have material up there. Like if somebody says, hey, I use this, you guys can have it, maybe. But right now, it's about a framework. It's about a repeatable process. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
I misunderstood. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, no. So,
Yeah.
yes. Right.
Yeah. It changes.
Yeah, basically what he said, and I'll get right back to you in a second, is you have to make sure your training is effective, because there's nothing worse than slapping a person with the same training over and over. That's ineffective.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, to keep it fresh, people get bored with seeing the same thing over and over and over again.
So now that it's been 5 minutes, I'll answer your question. Yes, if you go to the website, all of our names that are contributors are part of that website. Click on any one of the names, send us a message. We meet regularly, every Wednesday.
Yo.
Dang. You're right. The last 3 weeks have not been good. I blame you. We meet regularly. Yeah. So feel free to, we'll invite you to one of our meetings. You can bring that up. So, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
We are in dire need of research analysts. So what we'll do is come up with an idea or a concept that needs to be researched further, and then we'll have to kind of park that because we don't have enough people to do the analysis. One of the things we're looking at right now is training methods, like delivery methods. How do people receive messages? Are you hands-on? Do you like to read about it? Do you have to actually do the steps? That's something we haven't been able to research fully because of time. Yes? Yeah.
It's community-driven, and the more people contributing, the better it will be.
If all you do is go to conferences and just put stickers somewhere, that's good.
We have stickers.
No.
Oh, okay.
You'd have to make your own stickers.
Yeah, if you'll print
Yes, if you'll print
stickers,
your own
then
stickers, a
you
little
can
label
put 'em
maker.
places.
But anecdotal
great.
evidence, Bill can talk about all the failures you wanna hear because he's good
I'm
at
full of failure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are large organizations pushing that sort of thing around.
Worst
there.
idea ever. Department of Defense requires you to take a annual security awareness training course that lasts about 45 minutes, and it's been the same course for years. So the last 4 years that I was in the military, I skipped right to the test and took the test over and over and over until I got an 80%. That is a horrible failure.
There are also people
Yeah.
out there teaching wrong things, like a password. This is going to be an ongoing debate about password complexity and length. But generally, it's really not that complex. But, you look at Microsoft's uppercase, lowercase numbers and symbols and your dog's name and God knows what else. It's not that hard. So some of those things that they're trying to teach people how to be secure are really overly complex, overly burdensome, and it doesn't make them any more secure. It may actually make them less secure.
So the yellow chicken suit with the A-frame, I actually did that whenever I worked for NSA, and I got very good responses. I got some very bad. Screw them. I worked for NSA for 6 years. The best responses I've ever gotten from any awareness campaign was me in a yellow chicken suit with an A-frame, walking around Fort Meade saying, "Bark, bark, do you have questions about security?" It was absolutely ridiculous, but people would approach me.
And look where he is now today.
There you go. I'm retired and living on the teat of the taxpayer. Thank you. Any other questions? We have like just a couple of minutes.
Are there really aliens?
I will tell you that the UFO research is the #1 requested Freedom of Information Act from NSA. They actually have a division that does nothing but redact that information and produce it. They have their own production system just to answer.
Now that we got Branden arrested, I'm ready to go. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.
I didn't say there were UFOs.
Yeah, whatever.